Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case. Welcome to Vermontitude. New episodes drop every Tuesday and can be found by going to vermontitude.com, reformer.com, brattleboro.tv, and locally on Comcast Channel 1078. We come to you from our studios at the Innovation Box on Flat Street. I'm Peter Fish Case, and each week I cover the topics that are of concern to Windham County and the towns that reside within its borders. Joining Vermontitude today, Windham County Safe Place Executive Director Samantha Prince, who serves also as an interview specialist. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is not your first rodeo here.
No, luckily enough, I've been here before.
All right. Let's spend a little time going into what Windham County Safe Place does and the work. It's very important work. It's by no means glamorous work. It's very hard work. But let's explain to the viewing audience and the listening audience what it is you do.
Yeah, sure. So Safe Place is one of 13 child advocacy centers in the state of Vermont, and we provide services just like the rest of our sister CACs that include professional interviews that are gentle and trauma-informed so that when children or adults who have allegedly endured physical and or sexual violence or just witnessed trauma are able to have an interview that feels as good as it can discussing things that don't necessarily feel good. We also provide advocacy for those folks. So like if they need referrals or assistance in any capacity, we provide referrals to our partner team members, including medical exams. And the people that we team with are all using that same trauma-informed response. So when folks are getting a medical exam, they are receiving that physical care from folks who really are genuinely invested in how it feels for them to go through that experience so that the medical exam is not re-traumatizing them. And so we're able to provide all kinds of resources and support to people. And another important thing that we do is provide outreach and education to students, to the youth throughout our entire community, and professionals as well. Okay.
So that is kind of your brief overview, as brief as you can get. Can we dive a little deeper as into some of the things that come in front of, because you work in conjunction with the police department.
Yes.
Correct. And so some of the things that, I mean, we don't have to get into the bones of everything, but like a few examples of some of the things that you work with during, like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, sure. So someone that's experienced physical or sexual abuse in any capacity, whether they're a child or an adult, they are entitled to an investigation. If a crime has allegedly happened, a detective will be assigned. If child abuse or neglect has allegedly happened, someone from DCF will be assigned. And those two agencies together make up the Special Investigation Unit, which is part of the multidisciplinary team. So as the interview specialist, I'm on that team, but I'm not charged with investigating. My role specifically is to gather as much information as I can from that person in the ways that they are able to remember and recall it, in ways that hopefully feel as supportive and kind to them as possible. Michelle, who couldn't be here today, is on our team to provide advocacy and support to these folks while the investigation is going on. And our prosecutor, our deputy state's attorney, and victim advocate through the state's attorney's office also have a trauma-informed approach so that if a case lands in their hands, they're able to respond effectively. Same with our medical partners and mental health partners. We also collaborate with the Department of Corrections, Probation and Parole. And the team members all work together to provide a cohesive experience so that people don't feel alone or on their own through a process that's incredibly isolating and painful.
Right. Yeah, it's hard work. I definitely, I know that we've had some conversations before about some of the things that happen in our little community here in Brattleboro and throughout all of Windham County. You service the entire county.
Yes.
Right. And so you said that you told us what an interview specialist is, and you're basically a registered 501c3. You're a nonprofit?
Yes.
All right. So, and because you're a nonprofit, you have to raise money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like our other child advocacy centers, we are funded through various grant resources, which we are grateful for. And those really cover the bare bones of our functioning and operating costs. So when we want to collaborate on additional projects, we have to raise funds for those. So we have decided between this year and the next upcoming fiscal years that we would like to launch mental health services on site for people, and in the upcoming fiscal years to be able to eventually launch medical services on site so people aren't sitting in the waiting room for hours. But first, tackling the mental health project, we want kids and adults who have recently, or not even recently, but are able to talk about their experience of sexual violence or physical violence. We want them to be able to access a therapist right away without having to worry about insurance or ability to pay, without having to worry about a wait list, without treatment in between. So our goal is to recruit and pay for therapists who are able to provide varying hours and in person and virtual so that everybody has access. And we will pay for the first 4 to 6 sessions for somebody to have that acute treatment while they're on a wait list for somebody that can be with them long term.
So so you're what you're doing is the right thing, you mean? Like cutting out that wait time? Because sometimes, if you're bleeding, you should stop the bleeding. You shouldn't just wait until somebody else can stop the bleeding. So you're coming in, you're trying to raise this money. What's the goal of the amount you would ideally like to raise?
Yeah, our goal overall right now is $65,000, and that's for this fiscal year to be able to fund this project. But moving forward, we're going to look for sustainable recurring funding through grant sources and other endeavors. But in order to launch it for this year, our goal is $65,000. We've had one generous donor who's given $5,000 so far.
All right.
And a collaboration of our team members, as you can see on the Give Butter website, have been able to raise almost $3,000 so far. So we're doing really well, and we're so grateful for generosity, especially during these times.
All right. Let's highlight. So if somebody wants to donate, because you're doing kind of a funny thing right now.
Yeah.
And so explain to us what that is.
So we actually launched this campaign to compete with the other child advocacy centers, obviously totally just and fun and jest, but to compete with them to see which of us can raise the most funds. Right now, we happen to be winning. And what we're doing is challenging team members to either grow out their facial hair, add extensions to their hair, paint their nail colors, anything that just makes their professional appearance look sort of different or stand out. So hopefully people are like, hey, what's going on? Like, why are you doing that? So they have the opportunity to talk about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Okay. And one of those ideas is to put neon hair extensions in. Is that right?
Yes.
You were talking to somebody who has no idea what a hair extension is.
Yeah. So, I mean, same. But so Michelle and I are committed. So for every $50 donated, I will add one neon extension, and for every $100 donated, she is going to add one. So by the end of this month, we have a photo shoot planned so that we can capture and share how many hair extensions we both have in our hair.
Okay. All right. Now in the spring, you're doing another one. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get ahead of that one a little bit.
Sure. So this fall is always kind of like we do this hair thing, and we ask for annual appeal funds. But then in the spring, we try to raise awareness around child abuse prevention, and that's a nationwide thing. I think it's international. Forgive me. And blue pinwheels is part of that. So we hand out little blue pinwheels. Like our police officers will wear them on their lapels. DCF will add them to their lanyards. Things like that. And when folks make donations, we hand them out to them. If they're in the community, we can mail them. We ask people to put blue pinwheels out in their yards and really just start having those conversations about how prevalent child abuse is and why it's so prevalent and what makes it so difficult to intercept and address.
Okay. All right. So again, how long has Windham County Safe Place been around? It's been around for a while, but it's I mean, obviously it's not it's not like the bigger 501c3s, but it's doing some important work. How long has it been around?
Sure. Yeah, we were established in 2007 and became a certified nonprofit in 2010, and then we became nationally accredited in 2015.
Okay. All right. So you've been around for a while, and I feel like you're just sort of stepping out of this. Even though the work has always been there, you've always sort of worked directly with the police department to service the people that you service. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And now you are stepping your game up a little bit.
Yeah, so we are really trying to bring awareness to the fact that only 1 out of 3 kids are able to tell about being abused right away. So delayed disclosure, telling way after the fact, is actually really, really normal. We're trying to take some of the stigma out of this. We have this sort of like disbelief culture where people are challenging children, and less than 6% of all allegations of sexual abuse are ever false. And the fact that we so readily challenge children when they're talking about things that are really uncomfortable for them, when we ourselves wouldn't have the same capacity or desire, is a notion that we're really trying to do away with. 9 out of 10 kids are abused by someone that they know and love and trust. Stranger danger is not a real thing. It's really uncommon that abuse is happening at the hands of someone unknown to them. And perpetrators are usually really nice, and they're really good at what they're doing. And so kids telling is not something that feels desirable for them, to shake up the status quo, ruin their families' lives, upheave everything. And so we're really trying to get that messaging out there so that people can receive these kids in a way that actually feels good, and these kids can feel supported and loved through this process, instead of ashamed and wanting to sort of take it back and start over and wish they never said anything.
Yeah, I mean, their muscle memory is to sort of, if you will, even protect the people that are abusing them.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That happens so often.
Yeah. Some things that we can look at as people who are sort of operating, I mean, without forming a lynch mob around it, what are the things like me I could look for and just keep an eye out for where I might recognize behaviors?
Yeah, so grooming of kids actually looks like an adult just taking an interest in kids. But the thing is that if people are sexually attracted to children, which is unfortunate and difficult to say, of course, there's not a lot that looks different than an adult being a naturally good caregiver or support, which is why it's so tricky, right? They're taking care, they're giving gifts, they're taking interest, they're paying attention, and they're really going above and beyond to make that child's life improved. And their interactions with that child and everyone surrounding that child are not something that you or I would be like, oh, that's kind of weird, or even maybe necessarily raise those red flags. Now, in some cases it is, right? And people really don't say anything. Like you look at Jerry Sandusky and what's his face with the gymnast, like how many people had red flags and nobody said anything. That's super common, which is unfortunate, but more common than that, people don't really know. And the child sexual abuse symptoms look different. You might have a kid that's acting out. You might have a kid that's totally withdrawn. You might have a kid that's pretending everything's fine. You might even have a kid that's trying to be a perfectionist and control what they can in their lives. So it's really about digging in and paying attention below the surface level of like, hey, how was your day? Like who's taking interest in you and how's that going?
Wow. That's extremely hard to unpack.
Yeah.
Right? Which makes the work that you do even more important, which means that you need to support that work. Tell us where people can make a contribution to this active thing that you're doing right now.
Sure. So it's really easy to find our fundraiser on our website, which is safeplacecac.com. The website itself is givebutter.com, and then it's /letitgrow23 /Windham-County. So that's a little bit trickier, but safeplacecac.com will get you there.
CAC.
Yes.
Okay. So safeplacecac.com. Okay. CA is a place that you want to go. We'll link it in the description of this video and podcast. We want to thank Samantha Prince for coming on the program today and doing the good work that you do.
Thanks so much.